Good afternoon, and thank you to everybody in all of the committees before this for on-time performance. Okay, I'm told we have no public speakers, so we will look to the minutes of the meeting. Can I have a motion?
Motion made.
Have a second? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Bless you. Linda, to the work plan.
Thank you. We have two changes to this month's work plan. One had been on the work plan for a discussion of the MTA police radio system. We have moved that discussion to the security committee. With the creation of the security committee, it seemed like that was the more appropriate place to have the full discussion about that. In addition, we had a risk assessment for 2nd Avenue subway, and that was out of cycle with the discussion on 2nd Avenue subway, so we're just moving it to next month so that it can happen while Bill Goodrich is here and we discuss other elements of the project.
Okay. Then our first item up is a discussion on the East Side Access Project. One of the things that we've been discussing has been some of the risks that we've had with the project. Michael and his team have been working to develop some risk mitigation strategies, and this is our first opportunity to begin to speak about this. So, Michael?
Okay. Over the past few months, we have reported on the actual and potential loss of schedule contingency. And actually, the independent engineer has reported that their analysis indicated that the scheduled contingency has been, at this point, exhausted, and that our confidence level in meeting the September 2016 revenue service date is low without significant mitigation. The original design of the project has always required that all major access needed to go through Queens. This plan has been complicated by the poor performance by the tunneling contractor in Manhattan and construction delays in Queens due to design issues. We now face critical access issues, compressed schedules, and overlapping work for follow-on contracts. And we need to unbundle the connectivity between the various contracts in order to be able to mitigate the delays that we're facing. The chairman has challenged us to come up with innovative ways of overcoming these issues and develop strategies so that we can have a higher level of confidence in our ability to meet the East Side access schedules. Today, I would like to focus on the general nature of the solutions we are working, and we'll be back in September with more specifics as we develop them. The out-of-the-box thinking necessary to attack each of the problems areas require us to, in fact, develop strategies to improve access, to develop new areas in Manhattan for staging, and bringing large material using newly constructed shafts to the cavern and tunnels below. Clearly, we are facing here a problem of linearity in which, for us to be able to prosecute contracts in parallel rather than linearly, has been hampered at this point by the fact that we do not have enough access. So, provide new access staging points in Queens for tunnel finishing and system contractors is as well a major issue that we need to address. So the key objective is to get better access to Manhattan caverns and tunnels and allow multiple contractors to work concurrently. More aggressive yet thoughtful push to resequence some of our work is necessary in order to achieve that. We are at this point, okay, together with Long Island Railroad. We are evaluating the feasibility of resequencing the plans for the completion of construction in the yards. And as such, we are looking at a variety of strategies as to how we can accomplish that, including, and some of you may recall, We have 4 tunnels that we are actually working. It's the lead yard tunnel, and then A, B, C, that is one tunnel, and D, the B, C being a reversible tunnel. And we're now looking as to how we resequence the work so it will enable the railroads actually to better support our work. And in effect, we could be, and this is we're working out with Long Island Railroad as a strategy, we could be able to save significant time if the last 1,000 feet of the BC tunnel approach can be built while testing and readiness activities in other areas are initiated. So we try to work in parallel there. Again, details of that I will be then developing between now and September and come back to you. Some of the ideas that we are looking at with the Long Island Railroad in terms of commissioning and pre-revenue service testing include a variety of things, including the use of simulators to start training earlier instead of actually waiting for the project to be completed and then start running trains. We need to train, in effect, all of their engineers. Review the training requirements, including the number of personnel that will need to be trained before revenue service can begin. And all of these strategies have the potential to reduce the time needed for pre-revenue service activities. So, in effect, to give more certitude to the idea that we'll be able to run trains in September of 2016. In revisiting the Harold construction plan, we are looking to see how we can actually do a better job in a more efficient way. And we're looking at eliminating conflicting work areas. We are looking at the reward and risk to pre-purchase major pieces of equipment so that when the time comes for the contractors to come on board, that will be there, so that will reduce the time of acquiring these things. So all of these strategies, we're working with Long Island Railroad in cooperation with them, and we'll revisit all the assumptions in order to develop strategies of resequencing the critical work. The refinement of the strategies basically will happen during now and September, and we hope to have as many as we can between now and then. And the phasing for East Side access are extremely complex, and we need to be fully developed and evaluated together with our partners, that is Long Island Railroad and Metro North, and potentially with Amtrak. Amtrak is a major player in the yards. The goal, again, is to mitigate the impacts and increase the confidence of meeting the September 2016 revenue service within available budget. We'll look at both cost and schedule impact when we come up with these recommendations.
Questions, discussion? Let me offer one point on top of this. As Michael said, I think this committee has really challenged the CCC team to figure out how we deal with some of the issues that are coming up. This is a project that goes into service in 5 years, and we should be able to think of some ways to be able to do this. At the same time, I think it is well placed to say that these issues are complex. And so I applaud the thinking out of the box. I applaud the thinking. I've been down in the tunnel with Michael and Ellen and going through, looking at the shafts and looking at places in which things might be done and thinking about that, and I applaud that thinking and doing it. As a committee, we also need to be sure that we're not kidding ourselves about this, that we don't adopt new schedules or mitigation strategies that are not grounded in reality. And so on one hand, I'd say I push and applaud them doing this. On the other hand, I would argue that we have a responsibility in terms of the oversight of this that is critically important. And in that regard, I also think it's very, very important that the independent engineer is actively involved in this process. And I think that's the intent that CCC has. When Michael and his team come back in September, At that time, I would also like a report from the independent engineer, which is a report to this committee indicating to us their confidence about the mitigation strategies that we are talking about. Some may prove to be very successful. Some may fall off the table because of issues that come up in the details of doing that. But I want this committee to be fully informed about what that might be, and that this is a perfect place for the independent engineering consultant to be able to bring a second set of eyes, a second expertise to be engaged in that. And I think we should be using the 3 months from now until our September meeting to allow us to undertake it in that way. Does that sound fine with everybody? Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask
Yeah.
one question?
Sure.
In your opinion, is Harold one of the most complex pieces of this project now? I mean, is this
Yes.
the most troubling?
Harold is, let me put it this way, from an engineering point of view, the most complex of my contracts are the one that we're digging under Northern Boulevard. That's really tops it all. But from a operational point of view, Harold is really the most complex because we have all of this movement of railroad, and we need to shift lines and dig under and build stuff while the trains are continuing to run without interruption, without impact, and that's a very challenging environment. Yes, so I would say to you from that perspective, Harold is critical. We have many other problems, but from that regard, yes.
Jim?
Since part of the flashing light that begat this is from the independent engineer, not to minimize your own oversight, Michael, but have the independent engineers as part of their job, as part of their service so far, laid out any strategies that they feel might be useful in addressing these problems.
Let me point out that we are actually, even at this point, we have worked with the independent engineer on some of the proposals that we put forth so we can generate input from them as well. They have, to a certain degree, the advantage that they're outside the forest, so they can actually see the forest. We're sometimes, because of the trees, we don't get to see the forest, so they had an interesting input in some of the things. So we recognize that, and we always welcome them, and sometimes they have great ideas, sometimes their ideas do not pan out. So I would say that it's a cooperative effort.
Other thoughts? It's also, I think it has to also very much be a partnership with the Long Island Railroad in particular as well. I think one of the things that Michael talks about, and Helena has been part of this discussion as well, is about how to be able to look at all parts of this. Any place that we can save time in our schedule, any place that we can do that is real time that's being saved. So Helena and her team have been part of the meetings as well as we've been discussing it to this point. They will be a critical part of going through this, obviously, to the work at Grand Central, Metro North, equally in that same way. And all of that we have to figure out and work out. But I think the overriding thing I'd like everybody to take away is the recognition, as we've been talking about over the past months, about the risks and the concerns about the schedule in particular on the project, and the effort that's being made to be able to find creative and innovative solutions to issues, to be able to think outside what has been the norm of the way that we've been approaching it, with the idea that we should be able to recover at least some of that scheduled time and get us back on the track that we really want to be in. More to tell really in July. I mean in September. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is New York City Transit. Mark?
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Beanstalk. I'm the Program Manager for Systems at New York City Transit. This afternoon, I'll be updating you on 3 systems projects. Just to give you a little bit of background, a little bit of context, the first project is the Sonnet ATM Communications Network, which provides essentially the communications superhighway for the Subway's A division. The second project is the ATM-B Communications Network, which completes that communications superhighway and links in all of our B division stations. At the end of both of those projects, all of our passenger stations will be interconnected with a high-speed fiber optics communications network capable of communicating from the passenger stations to our control centers as well as to our data centers. I'm pleased to report that the Sonnet ATM Communications Network, that's the superhighway for the A division, achieved substantial completion last August and is currently in the closeout phase. Our plan is to close out this project at the end of this month. The second portion of the network, or the ATM-B portion, which completes the communication superhighway on the Subway's B division, is well underway. Substantial completion is currently forecast for February. We're working very closely with the contractor to place all of the stations into beneficial use by the end of this year. Currently, about a third of the station branch loops, and a branch loop is essentially a number of stations that are interconnected together in a loop, which then connect up into the central core of the network, are ready for acceptance testing, and that testing is well underway. The network management system, which is the computer system that essentially controls and monitors all of the equipment, is 92% tested, and we hope to complete that testing as well within the next several months. We have a few critical milestones. The project did suffer a delay from what was last reported to you, primarily because of a subcontractor and installer issue that required the prime contractor change installation subcontractors. I'm pleased to say that now we have a new installation subcontractor on board who has been ramping up his field resources and is committed to completing the job on the schedule and placing all of the stations into beneficial use by the end of this year. The second item is a potential issue, is a claim that the contractor filed for an extension of time and associated impact costs. We're currently reviewing the claim and have entered into settlement discussions with the contractor. The following chart depicts the remaining work on the job. Some of the terms obviously are unfamiliar to you, so I'll just run through a few of them quickly. Power plant augmentation work are some change orders necessary to improve the capacity of the power plants which provide the power for the equipment, and that work is well underway. DWDM, or Dense Wave Division Multiplexing Phase 3, is the add-on to the network to provide additional communications capability for some of our higher bandwidth applications, for example, CCTV, closed circuit television, which require a lot of capacity. The element management systems are the individual management systems for the network components, and you can follow along then through testing of the equipment, the network testing, delivery of the manuals and fiber reports, and then the beneficial uses of all of the station branch loops, which is projected for December. The RAM, reliability, availability, and maintainability testing takes place following beneficial use, and substantial completion is targeted for February. The PACIS, or Public Address Customer Information Screen project, is the first real project that we've deployed using the new Sonnet ATM Communications Network. It's deployed on the Subway's A division right now at 134 passenger stations. Our target is to complete all 153 stations by the end of the year. The Stage 3 software testing, we had 3 stages of software development. The final stage, Stage 3, adds on to what you see now in stations, which is the countdown clocks and the public address functionality, and it adds in some advanced maintenance capability for our maintenance groups, as well as logging of messages, both audio and visual messages. The transition to Stage 3 software is in progress. Over the next 90 days, we'll be placing the remaining 9 stations that are included in the base contract in service, and we'll be negotiating a change order to add in the 10 stations on the White Plains Road line, which were not included in this contract because those stations were undergoing a station rehabilitation project at the time this contract was awarded. So we'll be issuing a change order to add that work in and have those stations have the capability for public address and countdown clocks as well by the end of the year. The prime contracting consortium on this contract was the same as the one on the previous contract, the ATMB, and this contract also went through an installer delay, actually with the same installation subcontractor, which has also been was resolved early this year. The new installation contractor is working and is committed to placing all of the stations in service as per the schedule that I've mentioned earlier. The EAC has increased from what was last reported when I was here in December. There's a $26 million additional need in terms of cost. A lot of that went toward construction of the training centers that are needed to train our maintenance personnel in how to properly maintain the equipment, to train our operators in how to properly use the equipment, and to train the software developers so they will be able to assume software development and maintenance of the system once the contract is over. The stage 2 to 3 software migration is highlighted in yellow as a potential issue. The reason is because we've gone through and started to migrate to this new software, as I mentioned earlier, and we found a few anomalies interfacing the actual CIS, the signs, to the software. And that's why, for example, you might have seen those that ride through Bowling Green, for example, the system was up and running on stage 2 software, and when we migrated to stage 3 software, we found this anomaly that causes us to turn off those signs. The audio capability is still there, but the information is not displayed on the signs. We're working with Siemens, the contractor, to develop the software fix necessary to restore the signs as well. In terms of station beneficial use, a potential delay is an interface between the ATMB contract and the PACIS contract. There are certain stations that overlap, and if we experience any further delays on the ATMB contract, they may impact placing some stations in service on the PACIS contract. As I said earlier, though, we've resolved the installer subcontractor issues on both of those jobs, and we really don't anticipate this being an issue. It's just highlighted as a potential issue. Yes, sir.
The recent software upgrade that allows you to see the color of the line, I think, is a major improvement in the countdown clocks.
Thank you. I actually have a photograph of that coming up in a few moments, so if you can hold that thought, we'll get to it. The key milestones going forward that take us now through the end of the year, really just completing some testing and placing stations in service. SPT stands for Site Performance Test. That's the final testing that's done before a station is actually turned on, and we've got a schedule that gets us through between now and the end of the year with 153 stations online active between now and the end of the year. To address the issue you just raised, this was what 34th Street Penn Station originally looked like when it was deployed. Very monochromatic, a lot of information, very difficult for customers to see, even if you discount the glare from the lights. In response to customer feedback, as well as feedback and opinions from other people who we very highly value and respect. We're in the room. We've made some software modifications to make the information clearer to our customers, and this is what you were referring to, Mr. Eller. You can see that we've now highlighted the train lines in the actual color of the train lines, so you see number 2 train here in red. We've added information to differentiate between an uptown and a downtown train, as well as express and local. This screenshot just happens to have express trains, but a number 1 train would show up as a local train.
On that up and downtown express platform at 34th Street, there is no mention of the number 1. That is only on the local platform.
Train,
so
correct.
You actually don't have an idea whether you should stay where you are or run over to the next one, which I saw a lot of people.
I was just going to raise the same issue, Andrew. Nice to know that those of us from the suburbs have the same point of view.
We do have, though, at Penn Station, before you have to commit whether you're going to the local platform or the express platform, we do have 4-line signs that list all of the various services. The reason the platform signs are limited to just the service that can be caught on that particular platform. If we tried to put too much information there, showing us 2 trains of arrival with 3 particular services here, 1, 2, and 3, it would be extremely confusing. And we do actually have a few locations where we do try to show too much information on too small of a sign, and it's actually fairly confusing. So that's why it's differentiated here.
When you get there, you're committed.
You are committed. That's correct.
Yeah, down below.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, prior to committing, you have that information. That's correct. That's right.
But those of us who don't want to stand and watch the train go by on the other track have already committed ourselves more ways than one to that aspect
Yes.
of it.
I have to tell you, though, Mr. Paley, prior to deploying the system, when you'd be standing on the express
Right.
track and watch the local trains go by, you had no idea
Right,
if you
you
were
had
ever
no
going to
idea,
get an
right.
express.
At least now you know.
now you know there'll be an express
Right.
train and when it will arrive.
That is
So-
very true. That's very
And that completes my presentation. Any other questions?
Other questions, comments?
Were the this monitoring systems which have been put in place as a result of the chairman's work with you and with Linda and Ron been important in identifying the difficulties with the contractor in this case and enabled you to take action earlier in order to protect your endpoint?
They've been helpful in giving us, I'll say, additional tools in our toolbox to encourage the contractor to resolve the issues in a timely manner. In terms of identifying them earlier, I'm not quite sure they've actually were suitable to doing that. Things, at least in this job with the subcontractors, tended to happen fairly quickly. One day they were there. The next week we saw a slow reduction in manpower, which we spoke to them about, and then by the second week they were gone. But the additional changes that have been put in place have really given us sort of the ammunition to force the contract to address the issues in a much more timely manner.
Can I add something, Commissioner Blair? Also to tie into something you said last month, question you asked. We had a series of workshops with Transit, and we developed a construction phase risk-based schedule. So you see here a risk-informed schedule. It was done by all stakeholders at Transit. It was done very well, and you see that this has been done several years ago. It's held up very well, even though the contractor schedule is much more optimistic, and talked about key points, and Transit has been monitoring those points along the way. We feel it's very successful. It was a 90% completion, so I want to go back to your last month. This was a tech project. We raised the level to 90%. We challenged Transit to give 9 chances out of 10 for success, and they're pretty close, given the fact that it's several years old, as opposed to some of the others we mentioned that were 80% confidence level. So I just wanted to tie in your comment to the...
I should actually jump in because I made a mistake before. I had wanted the independent engineer to actually speak to this project and for you to hear the independent engineer's views about the current schedules and deliverability of the project.
Yes, good afternoon. On ATMB, as our comments indicate, the schedule can be met provided that the activities identified, the AWOS, equipment deliveries and cable repairs, are done on time leading up to the loop testing. The budget, we agree with the project budget, with the exception of the fact that the claim, contractor's claim, is not included at this point in time, but expect that it will be soon. On PACIS, we basically, as the comments indicate, agree with all of the points that were brought up by the project. Thank you.
Maybe this is for you or Mark. So you're, excuse me, you think that there's probably little doubt that the rest of the A division will be completed by the end of December?
That's correct.
That's all boroughs?
Well, it's only 4.
Right, 4.
Three, actually.
3 boroughs.
Yeah,
Three
with the
boroughs.
exception of the 7 line, obviously. But
3, but we have done other things to address the B division. And, for example, the 7 line, since you brought it up, we've done a number of pilots on the B division to figure out how we can provide similar information excuse me, on the B division to the A division. So the 7 line actually had a pilot that went on last week from 82nd to 111th Street, providing countdown information as well. So we're trying to expand out into Queens. We have some information on the Queens Boulevard line, a little lesser granularity, but we are experimenting and hope to actually award something close to the end of the year to start rolling out some B division train arrival systems.
does that system show you the exact train, or just that there's a train coming?
On the Flushing line, it counts down, showing you the exact time.
But let's say on the Queens Boulevard
It does
line.
not.
It does not.
Correct.
Thanks.
I think if you think about the sequence of where we find ourselves right now, and I'll speak for this, and Tom may want to join, but when we arrived and began to pick up this piece, I think the first focus that we had was actually on being able to deliver the project that we had underway and get it out and get it going and get it moving. And I think largely, and with Fred and Mark's help and the team, I think that has happened. And I think the result of that is evident to everybody. I mean, the amount of mail that comes into the MTA that says how much people really appreciate having this information is extraordinary. And I think the result of that is evident. But we had to work on being confident about delivering this project. At the same time, we recognized that delivering the B division in the same manner we were delivering this project was actually a time frame that was unacceptable to anybody. I think the first time frame that I was told was something like 2025 or something of that nature, and I don't know if it was, the words out of my mouth or the look of horror on my face, but it clearly was an unacceptable point to be able to do it. To everyone's credit, what we've now been in the process of doing is trying to find other ways of being able to provide that information across the B division. I think Tom has started some pilots, but largely kept his powder until he can get more confidence about what he's putting forth. I think before the end of the year, you will see a plan for us about what we put forth, but it has to be something that I think Mark and Fred and Tom feel comfortable that they can deliver on in much the same way that we've delivered on this project right now. We've tried some things like on the 8th Avenue line that are probably not going to be the way to do it. I don't think it has worked to the degree that we would have that we would have hoped. They have some further ideas of some things that they're trying, and I think that will be terrific. It's pretty clear it won't be one size fits all. And again, that's a bit of an uncomfortable situation for us. As an organization, we'd like to have one system that is doing it, not a number of different systems that are doing this. But I think the point that we've come to is what's most important here is have an end product to our users that they can feel and understand and see and use. If we have to have multiple paths of being able to get there, then we have to deal with that. We can't wait to just have one system to be able to do this.
But from what you just said, it sounds like there's not going to be one solution for the A division and one solution for the B division, but sounds like several solutions for the B division.
No, that's the point I'm trying to make. The B division will likely be several solutions. And part of that reflects the fact that the B division itself is not homogeneous in the way that it's there. Part of it will take advantage of places where we have certain opportunities because where certain work is underway to be able to do it. And also there are different challenges above ground and below ground to be able to do some of these things. And I think as frustrating as that answer may seem sometime, I've at least adopted the view. I mean, we talk about, there's not a month that goes by that we don't talk about this in the monthly management review that I have, but I think the reality is we are marching toward a place that we're gaining confidence in a path to be able to deal with the B division, and I think we'll have that path firmly outlined and in place so that when the A division work finishes, that we are moving on to the B division to be able to do that.
Is the solution for the 7 line going to be similar to the L line?
The ultimate solution.
In the long term, yes, but let's go to our next presentation
Yes.
before you get there, right? Because I think that depends on that part. The other part I'd make about this is that if we weren't about to talk about CBTC, I'd probably say that this is the single most important project that we're doing, because I think Sonnet and what that actually provides in terms of the communications capability in an environment in which information technology is so fundamentally important to everything that happens today is that information highway or superhighway, as Mark is referring to it. And if we think about not just the PIS, the countdown clocks and the signs that come from there, but even things like the new fare payment system, all of these things depend on communication in a way that we could not even have imagined just a few years ago. So what you're really seeing out of these presentations that you're seeing today is a complete change, really, away from just simply saying that the nuts and bolts of the way that we maintain our cars to do something like that is the most important thing, to the reality being that this communications framework becomes so vitally important for what we're doing right now. And that hasn't always been the easiest place for us to get to. That's a pretty big change for us as an organization. But it's a good change. It's the right change. We just have to be able to manage it. Is that all fair? Yeah. I would move us on to CBTC, if that's okay, then. Tom, is there anything you wanted to add to that, or is that?
No, I think you summed it up well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Nidish Patel, and I'll brief you today on the status of 3 ongoing CBTC projects and our upcoming CBTC International Forum. I think just a quick reminder that in 2006, the first CBTC line has been in service on the Canarsie line, and this marks our first significant signal technology change since 1950s. CBTC do provide NYCT with the greater throughput, enhanced safety, and from control and supervision from Rail Control Center. The first project is to address the ridership growth on the Canarsie line is to equip additional train, we equipping 64 R160 car, which will provide us 8 train on the Canarsie line. The contract is in budget, and we scheduled to achieve the substantial completion on March 2012. I'm happy to announce that all the 64 cars are equipped with the CBTC equipment, tested on the line, and has been placed in service and operating on ATO mode today. NYCT will be able to run additional passenger service on the Canarsie line when needed, and the minute we remove the existing signaling system, the service delay caused by the old signaling system will be eliminated. So over the next several months, NYCT will utilize the GEOs available and remove the old conventional wayside signaling system on the Canarsie line. In addition to that, we are collecting today the data for the speed measurement system for the powered axle. Since my last report, the substantial completion has been delayed due to the concern related to the maintainability of the system. We do not anticipate any further delay. We do have the GEO schedule, and we are planning to achieve the substantial completion by March 2012. Once I come back in January 2012 in this presentation, I will brief you on the benefit we achieved on the CBTC operating side. In June 2012, NYCT awarded the second CBTC project to the TELUS, and the project is based upon the performance requirements spec, and we are right now within 6 to 12 months we're going to finalize the design, and the manufacturing of the CBTC equipment will proceed. We are also working on the 2 interlocking, Times Square and the First Avenue, and we are scheduled to achieve the substantial in 2016. And to answer Mr. Albert, the question you raised, that this CBTC will provide the real-time information to the PACIS system, so we will have a time to migrate to the CBTC.
Right, but that's, final completion is 2016, and the chairman was talking about, having real-time information much earlier than that via a different system.
Right.
Correct?
Using the current signaling PLC system,
right,
we'll provide the information, and we're going to migrate with the CBTC. So doing any type of work on the flushing line is complicated by the heavy volume of the riders, the track accessibility restriction due to the Mets game, US Open, and so many other holidays. As such, we have developed from now through December 2012 a track outage from Queensboro Plaza to the Times Square, and we are planning to work all the track work, signal maintenance work, CBTC related project work, and also the station rehab work is all planned during those weekends. We also working very closely with the Department of Subway car equipment to achieve that all the car and CBTC interface are finalized, and we get the first train by January 2014, so the CBTC testing can start on schedule. The future of the signaling and train control is CBTC. Both domestic and international transit property are installing CBTC system. NYCT has successfully implemented our first CBTC system on Canarsie Line and recently awarded the second one on the Flushing Line. As per the current plan, over the next several capital program and as per the available funding, NYCT will be rolling out CBTC on the B division. To ensure that we are on the right path, we have invited 9 properties which have a current CBTC system and 5 signal CBTC supplier to meet with us for the 3-day forum. The goal for the 3-day forum, the objective, is to learn all the lessons from the other properties, explore the different CBTC rollout strategy. The goal is to cut the cost to achieve the CBTC deployment at the minimum cost and at the reduced schedule. We also are going to talk about that during the obsolescence, how do we other properties are addressing the obsolescence issues. And the test track, which I'm going to talk about, the third project, how to maximum utilize the test track, which is going to be available to us soon. Once we gather all the data, I will come back and report to you the benefits of the 3-day forum. And we're going to ensure that whatever the lesson learned and the ideas we get, we incorporate in the next project I'm going to talk about before we award the job. This is the third contract. In this contract, we call the project as a culvert test track, but basically we're trying to achieve here the safety certification on the mixed vendor CBTC system. The reason for that once we deploy the CBTC on the B division, because so far we deploy the CBTC on the Canarsie line and we're deploying on the Flushing line where we have a dedicated fleet. On the B division, we don't have the dedicated fleet, so we have to work with that limitation and constraint. So what we're trying to achieve under this job, that we're going to develop an interoperable system so the 2 vendor system can work together and also safety certified. The project is under negotiation with the approved vendors today, and once we go through the international forum and apply all the recommendations, we are scheduled to award the job.
Can I just ask you
Sure.
where the culvert test track is, on what part of the culvert line?
Yeah, between 4th Avenue and Church Avenue interlocking on a B3 track.
Thank you. Yep.
As I already mentioned, that this award is critical in nature because any job we're going to award on the B division, the completion of this contract is a prerequisite in order to get the safety certification, and also the prerequisite for the qualifying the new CBTC supplier. The goal here that the test facility we get under this contract and test track we develop under this project will be utilized to qualify more additional CBTC supplier. So once we go on a B division, we'll have more than 2 suppliers bidding the job so we can get a competitive price. And that's finished my presentation. Any question?
Questions? You'll be reporting back to this committee with the results of the international forum that you're doing?
That's correct, right.
Okay. And as much as I am committed to on-time schedules, I think the only potential delay that's acceptable on the Flushing line is if we have to cancel GOs because we're playing baseball in October. May not be our problem this year.
Maybe next time.
We did. Oh, IEC comments. I'm sorry, I did it again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I apologize.
No problem. We had met and communicated with the project during the presentation creation, and so we're able to say at this point that we agree and everything has been displayed accurately, identified accurately in their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doesn't this also, this schedule presupposes that the R-188 fleet is going to be delivered on schedule, obviously?
That's correct.
Yes.
You're concerned about the final date of 2016. That represents the completion of all work on the fleet, both new vehicles arriving, the additional trains that are required to support this and the 7 West project, and the retrofit of the existing fleet that'll be utilized on the 7 line as well. So trains will be going in.
Our 62As are going to be retrofitted so they can...
The 142As.
Oh, you're going to go switch there, okay.
142As, and the new cars will be the 188 cars for 11-car consists.
Wow.
Total of over 500 vehicles.
I think the point that makes, again, and I'm absolutely in favor of CBTC, and I think it's absolutely the right way to go, but when you talk about a traditional signal system, effectively the signals and the car are divorced from each other. There's really no interaction between the two, and you're looking at a wayside signal. What we are again doing is increasing the complexity. We did the same thing on the Canarsie line as well, of the interaction between the car and the signal system. And I think that's one of the reasons, as Anish talks about, why this is so challenging. It's one thing to talk about doing it on the L line and to do it on the number 7 line, which are our only standalone lines. There is no other part of the system that operates that way. And that's a lot of the complexity that we have in the way that we do this. So I think I personally, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think that this forum and the idea that Tom and the team had of having of getting together with properties and doing that and really trying to do that and continuing that dialogue in a very intensive way, I think is so important for us. We are by far the most complicated place that is trying to do this type of work. You go to London, you go to Paris, you go to Madrid. They don't operate the service that we operate in the way that we operate. They don't have the interconnection between lines. So we are, we stand alone in that way, and I think it is really, really difficult.
At one point, I absolutely questioned the need for CBTC on the 7 line, since it only meant an additional 3 to 4 trains per hour, and the standing limitation was, the going from 3 tracks to 2 tracks between 33rd Street and Queensboro Plaza. But Tom explained to me that you needed to upgrade the signal system on the 7 line anyway, and there's so little differential between upgrading it to CBTC and upgrading it with, the others, that it made no sense.
Right. A significant improvement or benefit from CBTC also, including on the Flushing line, where maybe you can't add a lot more extra trains, is your recovery from incidents, where you'll have the flexibility of moving in either direction and be able to recover from an incident much faster to get things moving.
The new Javits Center terminal versus Times Square, you'll have more flexibility.
Yes, and that will help increase the throughput as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. The last item on the agenda is the discussion of capital program commitments, completions, and the like. Linda?
Thank you. So as you can see from the completion commitment report, on commitments, we've had more commitments that have not happened timely. If you look at what those are, you can see they fall into 2 categories. They tend to be rolling stock procurements or very large projects for CCC. And what I've asked folks to do is to look at those kind of jobs to see how long the procurements are taking us on average, and to evaluate how long negotiations are taking us, because it seems to me either we're being too aggressive in setting the commitment dates, or we're allowing those timeframes to be longer than we would want them to be. These are all commitments that will be made this year, so it's not that they're falling off, it's just they're being made a bit later than we had hoped. And I think you'll see possibly some more rolling stock procurements that also slip as we move forward. So we're going to start trying to take a harder look at those dates. If you look on the budgeted variances, you'll see we continue to experience across a number of projects bids that are below what our budgeted value for the projects were. That continues to help. Those are funds that I am clearly trying to protect as they can help us fund the out years of the program. If you move on to completions, we're doing fairly well on completions, although they move at a much slower pace. As you know, fewer were planned to this point of time than commitments, but we're doing pretty well against completions. So that's the commitment completion report. If you have any questions, happy to try and answer them.
Alan?
more of a general question, but in terms of the out years of the program, any movement?
Any movement? They're still there.
Yes.
I think it was clear that the issues of funding the MTA capital program beyond, I mean, again, let's step back. 2010 and 2011 are fully funded capital programs. That was done in the package, the bailout package that was done in 2009. I think it was widely recognized in those actions that the MTA would need to return to be able to figure out, excuse me, how to be able to deal with the last 3 years of the capital program. I think it was also clear that in this legislative session, the one that just completed last week, that there really was not room in that legislative session and not the intent to try to deal with it in that space. And I think there's any number of articles that have already mentioned the remarkable amount of activity that took place in that session, and that probably was the right strategy overall for Albany. I have been in a fairly continuous process of speaking with the second floor and the legislative leadership to continue to remind them, to talk with them, to work through how we begin to pick this up post-session. Since I think we're only in the first day post-session right now, it's a little early. But it's interesting. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Dean Skelos, the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Fuschillo, the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, Marty Golden, the CPRB member for the Senate, all came to tour East Side Access. And I think a reflection, a recognition of the importance of seeing some of what was going on around the capital program. When I've been up in Albany, there's been an opportunity to speak every time with the Speaker, with the Senate, second floor. Tom and the other agency presidents have been up meeting with people. I think we're very much in the focus of things to be dealt with, but I'd be kidding you if I thought it was going to be sometime in the next couple of months. I think it will be at best toward the end of the year. And we're, at the same time, we're also pursuing strategies which I think some have received some public attention about where we can work innovatively with Washington. We were fortunate to receive a high-speed rail grant for $296 million that Linda and her team and others work very much to be able to do. That both goes to facilitate high-speed rail, but also helps to reduce the gap in our capital program. And we're working very much with Washington right now on the potential of innovative financing using a program that they have to be able to meet some of our rail needs. So, I think it's like every capital program, the words patchwork quilt sort of come to mind. No program has been easy to knit the pieces together. But I do think it has it will be getting attention. I think people recognize what needs to be done. I think we have to challenge ourselves to make sure we're doing everything we can as efficiently and effectively as possible, much like we did on the operating side. The same thoughts on the capital side, and we're going to have to be able to work with all of the leadership to be able to drive this forward in the second half of the year. It's a big job. I think there's no question about that. But I think we've done what we can do for starters right now. Anything else before I call for a motion to adjourn? Okay. Thank you.